2008. I was in the second half of the first year as head of school in a small Jewish community in Memphis, Tennessee. And I was frustrated. I was on my way to Israel. And my mission was to find a teaching couple, a husband and wife, who I could identify, recruit, bring back to teach in our school. The idea was one would teach in the elementary school, one would teach in the high school. They would bring with them the spirit of the land of Israel. And they would double in a role in the community as religious Zionist leaders. And so we were working with an organization that did just this. They found and recruited and vetted and interviewed young families who were looking to leave Israel for a couple of years and make an impact on a community like ours. And so I had a list. I had a list of couples that I was slated to interview over the next couple of days, and I had gone through their CVs and I had met them briefly online, but I was frustrated. Because on the list were couples that were good, but I was desperately looking for great. And so the minute I stepped off the plane, I sent an email to anyone who I knew involved in an educational institution in Israel. And I explained to them what I was looking for, the qualities we needed, the credentials these people had to have. And I said, if you happen to know anybody, I'm here for the next couple of days. If you wouldn't mind making an introduction, sending them my way, I deeply appreciate it. Looking back on it, I have no idea how many people responded to my email. In fact, I have no idea if anyone responded to my email other than Rabbi Goldberg, head of the overseas program at Yeshivat HaKotel in Jerusalem's Old City. He said, Gil, I got a guy. His name is Avi Goldberg. He's studying here in our kollel. He's studying to be a rabbi here in our yeshiva. I think you should meet him instead. He doesn't quite fit the credentials you're looking for. You see, he's actually never taught in a classroom before, but he gets groups of guys together all the time. He really seems to have a way with them. And his wife, well, she's not a teacher either. She's studying to be a nurse. But I think you should meet them. There's something special about them. Well, beggars can't be choosers, so I said, sure. Send me the contact information, I'll reach out, and I'll meet them. I remember like yesterday, walking into their tiny little apartment in Jerusalem's Old City, and knowing within a few minutes of talking to them that they were Jews. Sure, no formal experience in a classroom, but there was a warmth and a passion there for the Jewish people, for the Jewish state, for our history and our heritage, for teaching Torah, for lifting people up that was palpable the minute you talked to them. But not only that, there was also talent. You see, this young couple were talented musicians. He was a clarinet prodigy as a young kid. She was a concert violinist. And as they moved into adulthood, they took their music and their instruments everywhere they went, bringing life and joy and spirit to people all around them. And I could imagine them doing so in our community, and so I went back to the organization that I was working with, and I said, I've made my decision, I know which couple I want. Sorry to tell you they weren't on your list. This is the couple I want. This is the couple we need to have. And so, a few months later, Avi Goldberg had moved his wife and 4 little kids across the globe to Memphis, Tennessee. And so we put him in a classroom and taught him a few things about how to teach. He was a fast learner. He taught our boys in our boys' high school. He taught our girls in our girls' high school. It didn't happen overnight, but with time, he really found his way around the classroom. And his wife was no different. She had a knack for working with young children. We put her in a classroom as a Judaic Studies class teacher. And immediately she sparked the interest of the children. She got down and brought something out of them. And I know firsthand, not just because I was the head of school, but because that little redhead in the middle there is my daughter. And it touched people's lives, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, and not just with their teaching, but with their music. Anywhere you went, to any event that was happening in the community, you would find Avi and Rachel, clarinet and violin in hand, all the time, everywhere. And it wasn't just the music, it was the way they opened their home to the community. So constantly, you would have kids over in their homes, or adults over in their homes. This footage comes from later in life, but it looks and sounds exactly the way their home in Memphis, Tennessee did. Well, 3 years passed like that, and it was time for the Goldbergs to go back home. And so we saw them off and gave them their honor that was due, and they went back to their home in the state of Israel. But what was fascinating is that the journey they started in Memphis continued right on in their return back to the state of Israel. Avi realized he was a good high school teacher. And so he applied to teach in a high school, a boys' high school, Himmelfar, in Jerusalem. And very quickly became one of the favorite teachers in the entire school. But it wasn't just that he was good in the classroom. He recognized when he was in Memphis that he had this way of talking to adults and reaching adults and inspiring them, especially adults from all sorts of religious backgrounds. And so Avi signed up with an organization called Sohai, an organization that performs weddings and life cycle rituals for those Israeli families who don't have a connection with an Orthodox rabbi. He had a way of talking to them that lifted them up, that made them feel warm and embraced. And so he would do wedding after wedding, and of course when Avi did a wedding, he didn't just preside over the wedding, he was the clergy and the entertainment. And of course, Rachel was right there by his side, generally with her violin in hand. And another thing that Avi realized early on is that there were other communities that could need him. He heard about a community, a secular community, a kibbutz in Israel. So thoroughly secular for its entire history that this kibbutz did not have services on Yom Kippur. Nothing. And Avi heard about him and he offered to come and to run services for them. And for 20 years, Avi would go down to this community and run tefillah on Yom Kippur. It wasn't just their professional opportunities that grew as they came back to Israel, but their family grew as well. What started as a family that I knew of 4 children. Before I could blink an eye, they were 6. And I blinked again, and they were 8. 8 Goldberg children with 2 incredible parents. And then came the most fateful decision that Avi and Rachel ever made. You see, when Avi was a young man, he did army service. Like every other Israeli. Like many religious Zionist young men, he combined his army service with studying yeshiva. Yeshiva is there. He was in Golani. He did his reserve time. He went to Memphis, he came back, he continued on in the reserves. But Israel has a law which says that when you are 40 years old, you're now exempt from reserve duty. And there's another law, far less applied, which says that when you have 6 kids, you are exempt from reserve duty. Well, when Avi was 40, he had 8. So he was doubly exempt. And yet Avi and Rachel talked with each other and decided he has more to give. He's not done serving his state, and he's not done serving his people. And so Avi re-enlisted in the army reserves, this time as a Raz Tzva'i, as a military rabbi. And he took his coursework, and he graduated as the top in the class, and the idea was if the army ever needed him, he wanted to be there the same way he was there for his students in the classes and for adults at their weddings. He wanted to be there for our soldiers in their time of need, to be a sense of support and strength for them. Well, as we all know all too well, that time of need came far quicker than anybody imagined. Because immediately after October 7th, Avi received his Tzav Shmona, the emergency call to reserve duty. And so Avi left the classroom, and he left his family, and he left the weddings, and he even left the Yom Kippur services. He sent his kids instead. But he left the Yom Kippur services to serve 252 days with his combat unit up at the border of Lebanon. They would go in on a mission, they would fight, they would come back. They'd go back in, they'd fight, and they'd come back. And every step of the way, Avi was there, giving support, giving guidance, teaching, lifting the spirits of these young men. But the role of the Rav Tzva'i, of the military rabbi in Israel, is not just to lift spirits. Because when somebody in your battalion falls, it is literally the job of the military rabbi to pick up the pieces. So in and out Avi went, side by side with his soldiers, fighting, teaching, inspiring, lifting, correcting, informing, honoring his soldiers. There were brief interludes, few moments in between when I was able to come home, spend a few days with his family, a Shabbat of rest, and his kids would look forward to an Abba Gibor, my father, the hero. Hitgagadnu, we missed you. Baruch Shuvacha, blessed is your return. Hashem yirachem lachem. God is fighting with you. And there'd be hugs, and there'd be kisses, and maybe there'd be a few precious moments together with his wife. Maybe there'd be a few minutes of rest and a good shower, and then it was hugs again. And it was goodbye again. Back up to the border with Lebanon. And that brings us to Shabbat, Parashat Bereshit. First Shabbat after Sukkot of this past year. Now you imagine the mission started like every other one. Gathered at the border of Lebanon, Avi spoke to all of the troops in the unit. And he read to them Sukkim verses from our Tanakh about our heroes of old who showed bravery and courage in conquering our land for the first time and protecting it ever since. He prayed with them. Ana Hashem Hoshiana, please Hashem deliver us. Ana Hashem Hatzlichana, please Hashem save us. He read together with them the ultimate profession of Jewish faith in God. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And then he sang with them the ultimate profession of Jewish faith in the Jewish people. עם ישראל חי.
כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם. ועתה הנה אויביך יהמיון ומשנאיך נשאו ראש. על עמך יערימו סוד והתייעצו על צפוניך. אמרו לכו ונכחידם מגוי ולא יזכר שם ישראל עוד. אהיה נא עם חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל שלוחי עמך הקרבים היום למלחמה לאויביהם. חזקנו ואמצנו ריבה את יריבינו לחם את לוחמנו החזק מגן וצינה וקומה עזרת לנו עובדנו למען חסדך. אלוהי שיתם מוח הגלגל כקש לפני רוח כאש תבער יער וכלהבה תלהט הרים. כן תרדפם בשערך וסופתך תבעלם מלא פניהם קלון ויבקשו שמך אדוני. יבושו ויבעלו עדי עד ויחפרו ויאבדו. ענה אדוני יושיענה
ענה אדוני יושיענה
ענה אדוני יושיענה
ענה אדוני יושיענה
ענה אדוני יצליחנה
ענה אדוני יצליחנה
ענה אדוני יצליחנה
ענה אדוני יצליחנה.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
עם ישראל חי.
עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי.
Avi, my dearest Avi, that's how your soldiers will remember you. Because on that Shabbat you lifted them up, and the enemy shot you down. You literally died al Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying the name of God. But Avi, that is not how I will remember you. I will remember you, Avi, as the man who literally stood behind me at my son's wedding. Avi, I will remember you like so many of your students will remember you, like so many of your friends will remember you like this. In an embrace of friendship and love, of kindness and constantly giving to somebody else. Avi, this is my memory and it never will change. But you know, Avi, for those who didn't know you in the classroom and didn't hear you under the chuppah, for those who weren't lifted by you and your tefillot on Yom Kippur, by your words in Lebanon, they are going to remember something else. We remember a man, a father, a brother, a son, who saw the best in humanity wherever he looked. They are going to remember a woman. A woman who, in the depths of tragedy and darkness, found a strength that was not previously known to humanity. A woman who, in her Shiva, put out a message that politicians can come to the Shiva as long as they come in pairs. One member from the coalition and one member from the opposition. A woman, a mother, a wife, who 3 months after getting up from Shiva was in the Mamilla Mall on Hanukkah in the middle of Jerusalem. Cheer to others, lifting up other people's spirits at a time when they were down and it was dark. They will remember a woman who, in a flash of creative brilliance, decided on Purim, just a few months ago, to dress her 8 children as turtles with the number 8 on them. Why turtles, you ask? Because the Hebrew word for turtle is tzav, and the Hebrew word for 8 is shmona. Tzav shmona is the term for the emergency call to reserve duty. They dressed up as their father's final call to duty, to remind themselves and the world of the call that we have to defend the state of Israel, to be there for our people and for our land. Avi, you heeded that call. You heard it before it ever came. You've been heeding it your entire life. And I tell you this evening from here in Miami, Avi, I know you can hear me. You heeded that call, and we will heed her call. We will hear what she is doing, what she is calling on us to do. We will listen, and we will do our best to do as you did, and to heed the call she makes of each one.
Yom HaZikaron is not Yom HaDikaon, not a day of depression. And that's a big thing, because what we have as Am Yisrael in Medinat Yisrael, after 2,000 years of being in Galut, is raising our head, our shoulders, and being Am Hashem.
כל תפקיד פה בגדוד, כל חייל פה בגדוד, הוא חלק מהדבר המטורף הזה שיושב כאן. אז ביחד אפשר לעמוד במשימות מדהימות, ואפשר להציל את החברה בישראל ולעשות דברים מדהימים.
הם הרגו אותו, אבל הם לא יקבלו 1+1. הם לא יהרגו את הנשמה שלו, הם גם לא יהרגו אותי.
מוסר דש חם למשפחה האהובה שלי, משפחת גולדברג בירושלים, לרחל ולכל הילדים. אוהב אתכם. תודה.